Who could ever make Steven Spielberg angry? We're talking about Hollywood's Midas, the man who turns everything he touches into gold. And yet, even the greatest have had moments where things didn't go as smoothly as they hoped. Spielberg, known for his gentle and thoughtful directing style, has had experiences that left a bitter taste in his mouth, especially with certain actors with whom, let's be honest, he just didn't get along. Today, I'll tell you 3 stories about actors that Spielberg, for one reason or another, never wanted to see again. Not even on a postcard. And trust me, these are big names. Before we begin, I just ask you to subscribe to the channel to support me in creating even better videos for you. Let's start with a true icon of the 90s, Julia Roberts. Impossible not to know her. Beautiful, talented, always smiling. She had just taken the world by storm with Pretty Woman and had become Hollywood's brightest star overnight. When Spielberg decided to shoot Hook, she seemed like the perfect choice to play Tinkerbell, the most famous fairy of all time. The movie had everything going for it. Robin Williams, Dustin Hoffman, a massive budget, and a magical world to reinvent. And yet, something went wrong. Actually, everything did. Julia arrived on set during a terrible time in her life. She was under intense media pressure due to failed relationships and was mentally exhausted. This took a toll on the set, where her role required her to spend long hours in isolation, surrounded by green screens, away from the other actors. It was alienating. She couldn't interact with the rest of the cast and had to act almost entirely alone. On top of that, playing a character like Tinkerbell, who's all sparkle and energy, made it twice as hard. The result? The atmosphere became tense, far more tense than Spielberg was used to. The cast and crew, who were accustomed to Spielberg's relaxed and harmonious sets, began to notice that Julia was often irritable, complained frequently, and seemed out of sync. And the nickname that started circulating said it all. Instead of Tinkerbell, some began calling her Tinkerhell, not exactly a compliment. Spielberg, normally a master at handling actors and creating peaceful work environments, found himself in a situation he could no longer control. His relationship with Julia grew increasingly cold. Professional, yes, but distant, strained, almost icy. Years later, when asked about the experience, Spielberg was diplomatic, but his words left little room for interpretation. It was an unfortunate time for both of us. Translation: never again, thanks. Julia herself has since admitted it wasn't her finest hour. She said she felt lonely, abandoned, and that the set was almost traumatic for her. But as often happens in Hollywood, certain episodes leave deep scars. Spielberg never wanted to work with her again. Even when Julia returned to the top of her career with award-winning roles and box office hits, that door, for him, was firmly closed. Permanently. Now let's move on to the second actor. And here, things get even more intense. We're talking about Robert Shaw, the man who played the legendary Quint in Jaws, an iconic role with a chilling screen presence. But what many don't know is that behind the scenes, Shaw was a living nightmare, especially for a young Spielberg who was still at the beginning of his career at the time. Shaw was an old-school actor with a tough personality, a massive ego, and a not-so-healthy love for alcohol. From day one on set, it was clear he wouldn't make life easy for anyone. He particularly targeted Richard Dreyfuss, who played one of the young leads in the film. Shaw mocked him, humiliated him, and constantly provoked him. At one point, he even challenged Dreyfuss to perform a dangerous stunt on a boat, fully knowing he would refuse. It was as if Shaw was always trying to test him. Spielberg, caught in the middle of this personality clash, tried to maintain control, but it was incredibly difficult, especially since the film was already facing massive technical problems. The mechanical shark didn't work, production was running behind schedule, and the budget was ballooning. Having to manage a psychological war between two actors on top of all that was far from ideal. In hindsight, the tension between Shaw and Dreyfuss turned out to be a blessing for the film. Their on-screen rivalry feels incredibly real and added authenticity to the movie. And Shaw's iconic monologue about the USS Indianapolis, filmed in a single, masterful take, became one of cinema's most unforgettable moments. But that doesn't erase the fact that, for Spielberg, working with Shaw was exhausting. When he recalls that experience, it's clear it was one of the most chaotic periods of his career. Despite the legendary result, the experience left him drained. And finally, we come to the third case, perhaps the most curious of all, because we're talking about an actor Spielberg never even worked with. Yes, you heard that right. Robert Duvall, the legendary Tom Hagen from The Godfather, a titan of American cinema, someone who commands respect with a single look. And yet, nothing ever happened between him and Spielberg. In fact, an insurmountable wall was built between them, and all because of politics. In the early 2000s, Spielberg accepted an official invitation to visit Cuba and met with Fidel Castro. For him, always committed to humanitarian and cultural causes, it was a gesture of openness, an attempt to create dialogue between two distant worlds. But for Duvall, it was a scandal. When he saw photos of Spielberg smiling and relaxed with Castro, the outrage exploded. Duvall publicly attacked him, saying, "How can someone who makes films about freedom and democracy sit down with a dictator like that?" And he didn't stop there. Duvall was so upset that he vowed never to work with DreamWorks, the production company co-founded by Spielberg. He made it clear, "I won't work with someone who sits down with dictators." A harsh, uncompromising stance. Spielberg, for his part, said nothing. No comment, no reply, just silence. But the kind of silence that speaks louder than 1,000 words. From that moment on, the two went in completely different directions. Duvall remained a symbol of old-school, no-nonsense American values, while Spielberg went on to collect awards, successes, and standing ovations. But those who know Spielberg well say that attack hit him hard. He never said so publicly, but it was one of those moments that leave a mark. The kind of wounds you don't see but that never really heal. So, these are 3 stories that show us a different side of Steven Spielberg. Not the filmmaking genius with a camera always in hand, but the man behind the director. Someone who, like everyone else, had to face tough moments, tensions, and disappointments. And who, like everyone else, has people he would rather never see again. Because in the end, even in Hollywood, not everything is magic and happy endings. Behind the scenes, there are real emotions, misunderstandings, and definitive breakups. And these 3 stories remind us of that, loud and clear. If you enjoyed this video, let me know with a like and a comment. Do you remember other famous actors who had epic fallouts with legendary directors? Let me know below. And don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the next behind-the-scenes stories from the world of cinema.